Hello, the purpose of this video is to do a quick walkthrough through Cadence, the application Cadence, to show the different features and capabilities that it has. This environment is the testing environment, cadence-test.logapps.com. The actual live environment will be cadence.logapps.com. This is the home page. The user will enter their username and password. This is the home screen. It displays the different analysis the user have conducted or used this tool. The general information. Date was created. This space at the top, it shows the high-level analysis or the summary of that most recent analysis. In this case, it was the battery requirements analysis called. Date was created. The programming language that was set for the function point. There was no domain. It shows at a high level the number of requirements was 17, how many similar, how many ambiguous, how many non-functional, how many valid. It shows at a summary from a function point perspective, how many inputs, how many function point inputs, outputs, query, data, and interface. And this provides a high-level summary from a function point, from a data function, transaction functions, the function point confidence, which we will explain at a high level later in the example. But there's an I that provides a little information, and the estimated hours and so on. In general, the I is available for information at different locations of the application. It provides information on that certain space or that certain location. This is the download option. It downloads this full screen on CSV, so it's available throughout the different screens of the application. The top right is the user information. There's a profile, change password. User and companies are options available only for admin. We'll explain that at a later date or a different video. And the logout. There's the help function. This is provide links to certain and some content and some links to certain help information. There's a Cadence website, the user manual, introduction to function point, counting function point guide, example of an actual workbook in the function point, if bug weight reference, simple function point presentation, and there's a contact form to log apps. We'll start with the test data here, and we'll start a new analysis. It allows the user to enter general information about the analysis they are about to start to conduct. The most important critical information, obviously, is the analysis name, system name, the programming language, and the document itself or the requirements of the user stories to be uploaded. The programming language, obviously, reference to the function point, basically what programming language those requirements will be developed in to help provide this estimated function point in Slack, mainly Slack, system line of code. Now, in this case, we will we'll just use test analysis, for example, as a name. System name here, we'll call it a test as well. Obviously, those are unique, the analysis name. If you enter a similar name to another prior analysis that you have in the home page, it will not trigger an error that you have to rename the file. And here we'll just example, we'll select Java, for example. I'll put a domain here, and we'll call it healthcare, for example. Basically, what the set of requirements are they addressing a healthcare, a finance system, HR system, just a general information that the user can add more detail, more description here. The application accepts a certain format, a certain structure for the files, either a Word document, Excel, or CSV, but it has to be structured in a certain way. So if the user is not familiar with the structure, you can download a template. You can download an XLS, Excel basically, or a document or a CSV, and it would show you a template of how the structure needs to be. In this case, we will upload. So we'll click here, we'll open the Windows Explorer window. We're going to go to desktop and we'll do the beta test. This is the file. We'll hit next. It pop up a window. It asks the user to enter a name for a group level 1 and a group level 2. Basically, this is the categorization or the grouping of requirements. It allows the user to group the requirements by 2 different levels. You can think, for example, like epic and features, or capabilities and releases, or so on. So in this example, we'll just do features or feature and epic. So basically, like a certain feature, a certain epic, and it's part of the template as well. So here we go. So now it displays the requirements, the file that we uploaded. There's a requirement ID, there's the requirement text, and we had those 2 columns part of the file as well. So we named them features and epic. If we name capabilities or releases, obviously those are the grouping. And again, this depends, it follows the certain template and the structure that you would have the requirements in. So this file, if it's the correct file, we can proceed next. If it's incorrect, we can reload the requirements, and or basically reloading the correct maybe document or so that mistakenly a user have selected a different file. Just by reviewing it, it can give you it tells you if you uploaded. The user can tell if uploaded the right or the wrong file. We'll hit next. So at a high level, this is what we call the dashboard. The dashboard of the analysis. So the machine or the application is doing its very first automation estimation. So it does the parsing and the analysis, and it will provide a high level basically summary of the file that the user uploaded. So again, this is the dashboard. It provides some general information. So we'll start from the very top. This is the analysis name, and basically what a user entered earlier. Today's the creation of the analysis, what domain, and we did select healthcare. Provide programming language, we selected Java. Development project status. This is the actual status of the development of the requirements. For example, if certain requirements actually been developed, there's an option that will show later that user can select that those requirements been analyzed or been developed, so you can see the status of the actual completion of the project. So at a high level, of course, this button is to view the entire set of requirements that we just uploaded. This is to allow the user to reload a file. Maybe the user will realize that they uploaded the wrong file, so they could reload the correct version. This is to export the analysis and share it with other users to be able to import it and review the analysis. This is the reports, which will go later into settings as well. And this is the delete. The very top, this is almost kind of the process or the kind of the status of the workflow or the status of the user needs to follow as they're doing the analysis. So basically, we did create the analysis. We uploaded the file. This is the machine analysis, which is this version of the application. So there is a step that we're calling requirements review. There's a step of function point review, additional information. Then there is the summary and reports. The menu on the left, this is the expand and collapse. So basically anything in orange is the requirements analysis step. The tail is the function point analysis step, additional information here is system discovery. The user would basically, as you click on the different screens, will notice that those steps will be completed. The charts at a high level, they're very, here we call the major functionality. So the machine analyzed those requirements and provide a high level summary that those requirements, about 56% of them is transaction related. There's a 39 data storage related. So at a high level, it gives the user some sort of understanding what the requirement set is talking about. This here is the function size measurement at a high level as well. How many data functions or transaction function, what the total function point came to be about, and the estimated hours. Again, this is based on some general formulas that will the user can enter and edit some of those parameters to adjust those values. The confidence level or function point of the actual count. The machine follows a certain logic and provides some sort of level of confidence to the function point. So here is 85. Again, we'll talk when we get to the function point analysis. We'll talk at a high level how this is came about. This chart addresses the inputs and outputs. It shows graphically the function points, inputs and outputs in your obviously data storage versus transaction results and metrics. At a high level, it provides the function point requirement, slack per month, duration, function point, person month, and team size. Again, it's just the dashboard. This is the dashboard, provides a high-level analysis right off the very beginning of what the file, what the machine produced, obviously based on the text and the requirements that we uploaded. Going into the requirements analysis, we'll start with the similar requirements, then we go into ambiguous, non-functional, parent-child. So at a high level, as we're hovering over, it gives us an idea. There are about 47 requirements that are similar. There's non-ambiguous, there's 3 non-functional, there's 0 parent and child relationship. So starting with the similar requirements, it identifies similar in 2 different areas. There's something called exact, and there's something called partial. Exact is it's an identical requirement. It's a duplicate, basically. A partial it's a percentage partial to requirements to each other. And in this graphically, we show that, okay, our total set that we uploaded is about 93 requirements. The total similar is 47. 2 of them are exact and 45 are partial. We can filter through the requirements. If we wanted to see only the exact, we click the exact to identify the 2 exact requirements. We expand on them. So requirements IEXS 1.4 and 1.32 are exactly similar. Exactly duplicate, basically. We can see it's a duplicate requirement. However, they're in different features and different similar epic. So at a high level, it gives the user an idea of if it's really a duplicate, if the user decides to keep it or modify it or tag it, or maybe even generate the report and take it back to the stakeholder or the requirements author to verify. They can delete, as I said, they can add it or they can edit. If you click on any of the requirements, the text field opened to allow the user to edit the requirements. You can edit and save. Now we go to partial, and the same thing. It identifies all the partial requirements. So it shows that 1.30 is partial to 1.1 by 95%. If we look at the requirements, it's pretty much similar. The only difference, it actually addresses 2 different systems. And here, obviously, we're addressing them by acronyms. So there's a data extract from AIA, and this is M. So it's not a similar, like an exact similar or addressing the requirements. It's just a similar functionality, but it's a different system. So again, the user can decide to either extract it, basically depending on the process. It gives them information if it needs to be reviewed or not, if it needs to be generated a report and take it back to the stakeholder to verify. The middle chart is the similar chart throughout all the pages, again, to provide a high-level estimate based on the initial estimate of the machine. If the user actually delete a requirement, and we'll do an example here. Let's say if you delete this, depending on this requirement had some sort of function point associated with it, so the estimate numbers will change. In this case, for example, 81.173.1511, we'll delete this requirement. So the analysis will go and make sure that what we deleted is, to recalculate the analysis and the results. And in the case of duplicate and similar, or in case of a user edit requirements, it does the reanalysis of making sure what the user have modified or edited the text. It doesn't duplicate or compare or similar to another requirement. So here we go. We see it went down from 115 to I don't recall the previous number, from 80 and 170, but we see the number change basically. The requirements grade. Here is at a high level, the machine provides, it believes that the entire set of requirements, it's about a grade of B, which is a good set of requirements. Between basically 11 to 20% of it violated some certain rules. So it's about 80%, between 80 and 90%. The requirements are good. Hovering over the information, it provides us here the percentage value represent that set of requirements that fail the uniqueness and ambiguous rules. And again, so it provides an example and provides some information there. The user can collapse this screen to allow him to maneuver and visible more requirements. Moving on to the ambiguous. So similar structure, those charts are similar, and the functionality as well is similar. So here we provide a total number of all the requirements, then we provide all the ambiguous, and what falls in ambiguous is compound, vague, missing, and other. So we can see there are some compound violations there are some vagueness, and there are some requirements with missing keywords, and there is nothing with under other. Again, some functionality, the user can filter through them, and under the violation column here, we see the little icons that matches with the type of violation, and if we click on it, it provides that information. So here it says this is a compound requirements. Basically, it includes 2 or more discrete requirements, this particular requirement, and it tells us that if violated in COSI standard, that requirements must be independent. Compound requirements should be separated. Provide a suggestion that maybe the user can break into 2 requirements, or again, extract, download the reports, and take it to the user, to the author of requirements, to confirm and validate. As we filter, so here we can see the system shall load all data from system X table XYZ and send a report. So we can see that's a compound right there. There's another functionality. The system shall load all data. And even though this is between parentheses, it still captures that there is some sort of another functions that's need to be take place. So if the user it's editing, for example, and decide to remove, let's say, what's between the parentheses, so technically now it's not violating the compound requirement, and we'll see as again it reparses it, reruns it, look at compound, and we can see that that particular violation is not, or that particular requirement is resolved now, and it's not part of this issue. So the same thing for any of the requirements, the user can edit and modify, and to basically it helps the user to better the requirements, to have a better estimate. Go into the vagueness, obviously easy to maintain, and this is again, it allows the user maybe to ask the question or go back to the requirements author to ask the question of obviously need to be more specific what we mean by easy to maintain. Missing keywords is missing basically action words for the requirements. For example, the system shall be in Java. I mean, it's a poorly written requirement. It's recommended obviously to be developed in Java. So something as an action is missing there. And again, we look at the violation. The non-functional keyword is missing. So it gives the user a high level, some sort of guidance on what needs either to ask or modify and correct. Moving to non-functional. And as we're moving between the screens, we can see the check marks. Basically, the user visited the screen or did some sort of modification to it. So the non-functional, there is about 3 non-functional, and those are the 3 non-functional requirements. It highlights them as well. Here it says it's security standard, and it's a non-functional requirement. Capacity, it's not a functional, and data integrity is not functional. So it's highlighted so the user could either basically it provides again the user just a high level how many non-functional set of requirements. We have non-parent child, and basically if there was a non-parent child in the data set, it would provide us the chat relationship there. So now that we completed all the requirements analysis screens, we can see that icon kind of went green and recommending the user to move to function point. Obviously, the user can move around between those screens. It doesn't have to, he or she does not have to follow those screens, but this is kind of recommended by the application. So moving on to the function point. So this is at a high level, provides a summary in this screen, what we're calling function point summary. It provides a summary of the analysis. It shows that the FPUG weighting average was used to calculate. The user can select the simple function point or FPUG weighting. It shows that the Java language that we selected up front, and it used the median value for the backfiring ratio for the slack. The user can change the languages here and even change the function point, and those charts would be updated based on the changes. So for example, we see here the input is 56, query is 56, output 10 and 140 under the feature 1. If we change it to simple function point and we give it an update, so now we see those values have changed to match with the changes that we have done. The chart on the left is a pie chart from a function type. So we look at the input, output, and again, gives you information at a high level. That's a heavy data related system requirement set. There's that's an output. So we know there's no interface requirements here at all. We can change it from a pie chart to a bar chart. So again, we can see the different functionality. And this is for the entire data set. The chart's on the right, looking at it from that grouping level, from group level 1, which we called feature. So it identified all those features. Based on this example, we grouped them by those names of feature 1, feature 2, and feature 3, and so on. But obviously, whatever the names that in the data set will be modified, will be shown here. And it kind of gives the user a high-level understanding of, okay, all the features seems balanced. Maybe not another feature is more, requires more effort than other, and so on. So it might give you as well, the user, some sort of an idea or recommendation or so for, depending on who the user is, maybe for a trade-off or moving certain features or certain requirements from one feature to another. Looking at this from a table view, so if we look at that table view here and we have that charts view, so it provides that function point grouping, the function point, the functions, the function points, the function point percentage, the slot, and the slot percentage. And again, this is downloadable, and the user can use this information either to provide a report or a presentation and so on. So this is the summary view. Now, this is the next view is what's called the function point detail. This is a lot of the most of the work could take place from a function point user. It would allow them to do edits and modification and add comments and tags and so on. So this is the entire, again, the same structure is similar. We have the most common charts on the top. So we've seen the function point charts, we've seen the function point size measurement, and this is the majority which we have seen at the very, very beginning of the dashboard. And here, this is the list of the requirements. It provides the function point for requirements, the transaction type, what was in this, based on what the machine identified, what are the data types, what are the transaction types, what is the function point confidence, the count for this particular requirements, and the multiplier depending on, again, if this requirements is a multiple requirements across different features or epic, or the user knows that it requires more effort, or requires, obviously, if it's a requirement similar across different epics and so on, so they can modify the multiplier. Three taps at the buttons at the top left here. It's some sort of quick fixes that it helps the user with. I'll start backward with the data group check. And the word of function point, we know that we want to make sure that we do not double count the data's objects. So, and here when we click on it, it'll identify all the data's, or the object I should call, in the requirement set. So for example, there's an table called all summary, there's a table called all OLS summary, and it's repeated twice in the entire set. So, and this is under the save, you have the save interface or both. So, and here it gives a message that says this object is repeated in multiple requirements and is listed as a save in all cases. To avoid overcount, we can click yes. So for example, I'll click on data save. It shows me those two requirements. The requirements ID and the requirement text. And basically it's telling me this is in this particular scenario, this object and this object. Both are two different. One of them is load, one is store. I counted save functionality for them twice. So it's maybe it is, we want to keep it the way it is, or maybe if we wanted to remove the double count, we can either create the yes, touch on the yes, and we know that now it kept the count for the first occurrence of it in the requirement set, and it removed it from the second data set. And it's obviously a lot of update, so we can see that the numbers actually have changed to 79, which was 80. And we'll do another example in a different approach. So here, see, it's still there. It's showing the first one was counted. Was removed. If I select another object, obviously both of them are still counted. Let's look at an example if it's something more than 2, for example here, table BBF. And we can click on the actual requirements here on the edit, and we can look at it at a more detail. We identify the action and the object, and we can either remove it from here, we can modify it from here, that requirement, or we can do the same thing by clicking yes. It will identify, oh, I needed to scroll down to the correct one. So here we go. See, it shows us that this was counted and all those 3 were removed. And if we go back here, we'll see that number has changed again. So this is a quick check from a high level for data group check. Now, if we look at it from input, actually also under data check, obviously there's interfaces. In this example, we had none. But if we did, we can always, it'll be the same basically approach. Now, if we look at an input object check, in this example, we don't have any. But with this object check, with this input object check, it looks for any objects that were defined as that were mentioned in the data set, and it requires some sort of a change or modification to an object. But this object was never created to start with. So for example, if we said the system shall change values in object X, and we never actually created object X, it will flag it to the user that object X was never created to start with. So how can you change it? Is it something, do you need to add the requirements for it? Basically, if there's a gap from a functionality, it would tag it here, and the user can go back, either add that requirements or run it by the requirements author to validate. The multiplier allows the user to do it at a high level here. We can select multiple requirements, for example, that we know that requires, oops, I'm gonna click the box. If we know that we need to add an extra multiplier for the extra, if it's across different features and so on, we click the multiplier, and we can say, I believe this requires across 10 different. So here we go. We can see that those values has definitely increased, and this has changed here as well. Now again, those buttons are a very high level at a group of requirements. Now if you want to do a requirement by requirements, you can click on that particular requirements, and this is the edit view. So it shows the requirement text here. It highlights whatever the actions were. In this case, was define and provide. It identified the proposed object. And again, this is just obviously what's automated, what was proposed by the machine. The user can modify the count here. They can be like, okay, this does not apply here, for example, and this is actually here. So this is from the data groups, and this is from the transaction data. When you click save, obviously we'll see that the data have moved, and we can also change the multiplier here, and we can click the save, and we'll change that count. Those are the at a high level as editing the function point. However, there's additional things the user can do. They can add requirements. They can add comments. So for example, be like, see how we remove the data check for the data group. We can say because it's repeated, because it is repeated, for example, and we'll click save. So it adds it in the comment right here. So it allows you, when we go back, maybe at a later date, to see why we removed something or so on. We can see what the comment was captured there. The additional tab up here that allows the user to modify and edit as well, starting with the very first, is here it says requirement development status. If you recall, in here it says it's by default it sets all the data sets, all the requirements set to do. The user can, and this is if requirements, for example, it's actually developed and completed. If we change it to done in this case and we close it, we'll notice that this status bar here, development project status, is changing depending on that status. I'll select the requirements that we have touched, mainly because I want to go through the second tab, and the second tab is called function point status. By default, all the requirements, after they've been uploaded to the machine, they will all set as automated count. What it means is this is what the machine has counted and proposed. Any modification or any changes, either from the status of the requirements or the system component by adding tags or adding unique tags or even modifying this count, this function point status will change to manual update, which means the user has done something that changed it from automated count to a manual update. So for example, let's say we change it to done. We'll notice that this has changed to manual update, and let's see, the basically that will change here as well. Now it's moved to 2%, and as we showed, it changed to manual. Let's select another requirements that we haven't touched, and we'll go to the third tab, and it's called System Components. And we can tag this requirements by maybe groups. Those are predefined with admin, database, reporting, security, user, workflow, but the user can also add their own. And here, for example, I will call it interface, for example, or I want to add another tag and call it need to be reviewed. And let's say I'm going to add another and say 2 is enough. And if we go out and exit the requirements, obviously we'll see go down, and it was, I believe, this requirements, go to the tags. Yep, right there we can see the new tags that we defined. We defined something called interface, need to be reviewed, and basically that's as the user can add and tag each of the requirements as they fit, and that would help to when they filter or search or something at a high level. So for example, if the user has tagged or modified or changed any of the in the entire set, in this example we have about 90 so requirements, we can always filter them down by what we either tagged or what we have been predefined. So what the application proposed here is the list of the predefined categories or tags. So there is something called automated count, the manual count. Those are the system components, but they're also at the bottom, it adds whatever the new tagging that user has added. So in this case, I'll change it to interface and I'll do filter. Here we go. That's the requirement that we added that tag. And remove it, go back to the entire set. Now let's go back to the edit screen. So we talked about the requirements development, talked about function point status, system component, and the tags. And this is the function point screen edit. And the last is called similar. So what it does is it identifies at a one screen if this requirement, similar to that duplicate screen, but basically showing you here which requirements were duplicate if they were duplicate. And if it's exact or partial. In this case, none of that. And let's see if we can find an example that has something. Let's go here. Yep, here we go. So this requirement has is this exact? No, it's a partial. So this requirement is partial to this. The system shall store all data from system X to table O. It's called that table. In this code, it's a different table. So it's a similar written requirement, but it's really a different object, so it's okay. But in case if it was something duplicate, we can always click on that and we know which requirement it is, and we can modify it or edit it or change it from a function point perspective. And this is, again, this is the function point edit main details screen that the user can manipulate and change and so on. And we can see the count is changing overall. Now, the last thing that we talk about here is the function point confidence. And the function point confidence, as I said, is generally, and it provides a logic to show that what it thinks it's confidence from a function point count or not. So we see some of them are 75, some of them are 100%, some are 70%. And if we look at the description here, it looks at based on 5 quality checks. What are those quality checks? Has no requirement. So basically, the five are if the requirement has no keyword or multiple keywords, fails to identify an object, is a child to requirement, is non-functional, or is ambiguous. So it has any of those based on each one of those 5 quality checks. It provides some sort of a confidence level. So if it doesn't violate, if it doesn't tag or trigger any of those 5 quality checks, so it provides a kind of 100% confident. If it's something different, then it provides a different level of confidence to it. Another thing in this view and screen that I like is the download. The user can download this screen and download it in a CSV file. And we'll open it here, and it provides the entire look in Excel of the same thing that we just saw. So we have the requirements, and we have the function point. We have the transaction type, data type, the confidence, and the multiplier, and obviously the function point here. So the user can change and can create some pivot tables or so if need to be. All right, going back to the application. The next screen is called the results and metrics, and basically it's provide a summary at a high level. Again, this is what we saw at the very beginning of the dashboard, what we think were the function point requirements per month and so on and so forth. And again, if the user changes any of those values change depending on what the value is here the user is selecting. And now we can see, now we checked all those three areas. Now that function point review has been colored green, and the additional information is the system discovery field, and basically it's a field that allows the user, if they would like to dive down more in detail into the analysis of the requirements. So it provides the list of objects that were all identified in the analysis, and if users select them, they can filter the chart. So for example, this particular object, table X6, is repeated twice, and one of them was a load and one of them was a store function. And if we want to look at those two specific requirements, we can click that requirement view, and it'll show us it's requirement 1.19 and 1.20, and those were both associated with table XS. And actually looking at this, we can see that one of them is load and one of them is store, and one of them is really 3 years. So it's kind of similar requirements. So it also might change or influence your decision from a function point perspective. But also we can look at it from functions versus objects. What are the things that were maintained? And we got to clean the filter. Let's go back to that chart. Maintain was only mentioned once, and this is the requirements that provide that system shall be maintained. And the same thing, we can select those different actions and see where the requirements were repeated. Looking at the second tab, it's called major functionality, which we've seen this chart before, but this provides also a percentage, so in table format. If we go to object, action, object relationship, all it is it just shows the actions on the left side and what actions were associated with it graphically. So we can see here at a very graphical representation that load and store are very heavily those functionality part of the total requirement set. And those are the object all associated with. But we can also see some object that were only associated, for example, with provide with none of the other functionality. If we wanted to focus on the object more than the actions, we can switch the view and we can look at it basically left to right or right to left. And now we can see that additional information area has been colored green and it shows it's completed. If we go back to this is the dashboard as I called earlier. Now that we went through all the screens, the user can actually generate a report. And we have 3 different reports part of the application: analysis report, group level report, comparison report. Analysis report is basically all the screens that we went through. You can generate a report to a specific section, or you can select all, and the user can select the format of the tool. The report, we can do HTML, PDF, or doc or XLS. Basically, HTML, PDF, and doc are similar, the same structure. XLS with Excel is a little different. So we'll do the doc file and we'll do the XLS just to present it here. When we create the doc, it's running the report. It's going to download it for us as soon as it completes the populating the report, and we see it right there, analysis report. Double click on it. And there we go. So we have the analysis report test analysis. That was the name of the file, the name of the analysis that we named it, generated by me on this date. And this table of content then provides a high-level summary. What was the name of the analysis, how many requirements were uploaded. At a high level, those requirements, some of them are exact duplicates, some are similar, some are ambiguous and compound, and so on. It provides that summary of function point. Then it goes into detail the different sections. Requirements assessment, it provides a high-level summary, provides all the requirements here. Those are the similar requirements that we identified. It was like 40 plus. I'm scrolling down to go into the next section, which was the ambiguous. So the same thing, it shows all the ambiguous Non-functional shows the non-functional. Then it moves to the new section, which is called estimation, provides a high-level summary. And here it provides also what function point weights what is used, what programming language, and those are the metrics or the parameters that the user can change. I'll show you later at the setting. But basically, depending on this is how all the estimated was calculated. I provide that summary chart for function point from group level 1, that level. Then it shows the table format. It shows the details, which is that entire list of requirements with the requirement text, function point, and so on. I'll go through it very quickly here. But again, it's nice. It's Word documents. It's edited. The user can copy, paste, or manually edit anything if need to be, or move it into a much more analysis or bigger report. Results and metrics, that charts, system discovery, and that chart. So again, the PDF, the Word, and HTML is all the similar structure. Now, if we go to try to generate the Excel version, basically is the similar in concept, but the only difference is every section is populated in a specific worksheet. So we'll wait for it to open, and here we go. So that's the summary in the table format, the duplicate requirements, similar requirements, ambiguous requirements, ambiguous vague, the compounds, the keywords, missing keywords, and non-functional, parent child, the major functionality, the estimation summary, estimation, that entire list of requirements and its function point and so on, results and metrics. So each one of them in a separate worksheet. Going back into the application, the other report we have is called a group level, and you can generate an HTML, PDF, or doc. There's no Excel, mainly because it just really shows the group level 1 and group level 2. We'll do a document version here. Here we go, group level report. We'll double click on it, and it provides the requirements per group level. So this is percentage-wise the requirement set, how much each feature represent. I'm looking at it from group level 2, which is epic in our example. So it shows that group level 1 is heavily set of this requirements, and epic 2 is very, very only 6.5%. So again, from a PM perspective, you can maybe trade off or move or move some of the requirements, or really kind of group them differently, separately, or so on. Looking at it from a functional size, what are the features, looking at the features from function point perspective, looking at it from level 2. And the third one is looking at it from a development status. The development statuses, which we change some of them to done versus to most of them by default is need to be to do versus the 2 or the 3 ones that we changed done. And we can see the green there, basically the ones that we changed done, the green ones there. And if we had in progress, we'll show the orange, and the to-dos in red. The third and last report in the application is called the comparison report. And what it is, it generates in Excel only, and it's the report, the comparison between what the machine has automated and counted at the very beginning when it was created before any manual manipulation versus the manual manipulation from the user. So this is what was uploaded. This is the requirement text. The modification, we did edit one requirement, if you recall, deleting between the parentheses, I believe so. Yep, that one. So we deleted it, so we changed the modified text. I think that's the only requirements that we actually changed. We actually did delete that requirement from a similar, so it says that this requirement was deleted. Looking at from the third column, this is the automated count. This was 2355. This is when we add some multipliers there. We did some, and here it shows you at a summary which one the ones that we changed versus not. So this is yes, 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 all no, we changed this. And the deleted one, I believe so, yep, right here it shows yes and a 0 count. So it's kind of almost kind of a baseline that it provides you the machine count versus the human count. Last but not least, in the application is what we call settings. Is this screen right here. And in settings, this is the similarity threshold. When it's similar between the similarity between requirements, the user can increase it or decrease it. The white list is basically telling the application what words to skip, not to count or not to look at either from functionality or from keywords or so on. Programming language, the user can change that programming language here. Function point weights, you can change this as well here. And beside the multiple screens that were identified earlier, the keyword settings, and this is kind of where all the keywords are identified and then mapping from a function point perspective. User can do changes here and it would apply across all the entire requirement set, or you can add new ones or delete some certain keywords as well. So this is where the keyword settings is. And the last but not least is the software development labor hours. User can change the hours here and hours per function point here, and that would automate change basically that duration, that estimation in hours that it's provided. And overall, this is the Cadence application.